Welcome to Iraqi Dinar News, where we examine developments affecting Iraq's economy and currency, using verified information and balanced analysis. A recent comment circulating within the Iraqi Dinar community comes from Frank 26, who expressed the personal opinion that the market rate could move on a daily basis through small incremental changes rather than a single large adjustment. It is important to emphasize at the outset that this is an opinion and not an official announcement from the Central Bank of Iraq or any Iraqi government institution. As with any commentary about currencies, viewers should distinguish between individual viewpoints and confirmed policy decisions. Understanding that distinction helps create a more informed discussion about what could influence the Iraqi dinar over time. Exchange rates are shaped by many economic forces, including monetary policy, inflation, liquidity, foreign exchange reserves, trade balances, government fiscal policy, and overall confidence in the financial system. Therefore, while commentators may speculate about potential future movements, meaningful changes in a currency's value ultimately depend on official decisions and measurable economic conditions, rather than predictions alone. When discussing the possibility of gradual movement in a currency's market value, it is helpful to understand how foreign exchange markets operate. Many currencies around the world do not experience dramatic overnight changes. Instead, they often move gradually as new economic information becomes available. Central banks regularly monitor inflation, banking liquidity, economic growth, and exchange market conditions before making policy decisions. Small changes in market pricing can occur because participants react to shifts in supply and demand, seasonal business activity, international trade, or changes in investor expectations. These movements are common in many financial markets and should not automatically be interpreted as evidence of a major monetary policy shift. For followers of the Iraqi dinar, this means that observing small fluctuations, if they occur, is different from assuming an official revaluation or structural change in Iraq's exchange rate policy. Another important consideration is the distinction between the official exchange rate and the parallel or market exchange rate. The official rate is established through monetary policy and is managed by the Central Bank of Iraq, while the market rate reflects buying and selling activity outside official channels. Differences between these rates can arise because of supply and demand for foreign currency, banking access, compliance requirements, and broader economic conditions. Governments and central banks often work to narrow gaps between official and market rates through financial reforms, improved banking transparency, and measures that strengthen confidence in the domestic currency. These efforts are typically gradual and require sustained policy implementation rather than sudden changes. As a result, analysts often pay close attention to banking reforms and foreign exchange management, instead of relying solely on speculative predictions about future currency values. Iraq has spent several years implementing reforms aimed at strengthening its financial system. These reforms have included improving electronic payment infrastructure, enhancing compliance with international banking standards, increasing transparency in financial transactions, and modernizing the country's banking sector. Such initiatives are designed to support long-term economic stability rather than produce immediate changes in currency valuation. Financial institutions generally view structural reforms as an important foundation for sustainable economic development. If reforms continue successfully over time, they may contribute to stronger investor confidence and a more resilient financial system. However, the timing and impact of these developments depend on numerous economic and policy factors, making it inappropriate to assume a direct or immediate effect on the Iraqi dinar's exchange rate. Oil revenue also remains a significant factor in Iraq's economy. As one of the country's primary sources of government income, fluctuations in global energy prices can influence fiscal resources, budget planning, and foreign currency reserves. Strong oil revenues can provide additional financial flexibility for government spending and reserve accumulation, while lower prices may create fiscal challenges. Even so, the relationship between oil prices and exchange rate policy is not automatic. Monetary authorities consider a broad range of indicators before making decisions affecting the national currency. This illustrates why observers should avoid drawing simple conclusions from any single economic development or personal prediction. Foreign exchange reserves represent another important element in evaluating a country's monetary stability. Healthy reserve levels provide central banks with greater capacity to support financial stability, facilitate international trade, and respond to periods of market volatility. Economists often examine reserve adequacy alongside inflation, economic growth, fiscal performance, and banking sector health when assessing the outlook for a currency. Strong reserves alone do not guarantee appreciation, nor do they necessarily signal an imminent policy change. Instead, they form part of a broader picture that policymakers evaluate continuously while pursuing economic stability. Inflation is another variable that deserves careful attention. Maintaining stable prices is one of the primary objectives of central banks around the world. If inflation remains under control, confidence in the domestic currency can be supported over the long term. Conversely, persistent inflationary pressures may influence monetary policy decisions aimed at preserving purchasing power. For this reason, analysts closely monitor inflation data alongside employment trends, government finances, and economic growth, rather than focusing exclusively on exchange rate speculation. For members of the Iraqi Dinar community, patience and critical thinking remain essential. Currency markets are influenced by complex economic relationships, and developments often unfold gradually rather than through dramatic events. While discussions and opinions from market commentators may generate interest, they should be evaluated alongside official information and credible economic data. A balanced approach helps avoid unrealistic expectations and encourages a better understanding of how monetary policy works in practice. Following announcements from the Central Bank of Iraq and other official institutions remains one of the most reliable ways to stay informed about confirmed developments affecting the dinar. Ultimately, the suggestion that market rates could move gradually should be understood as one individual's opinion about a possible future scenario, rather than evidence that such changes have been confirmed or are guaranteed to occur. The long-term outlook for Iraq's economy will continue to depend on structural reforms, fiscal discipline, banking modernization, investment, economic diversification, and prudent monetary policy. As these factors evolve, analysts will continue evaluating their potential implications for the Iraqi dinar using verified information instead of speculation. For viewers following Iraqi currency developments, maintaining realistic expectations and relying on credible sources can provide a stronger foundation for understanding future economic news than relying on predictions alone.